Hey guys, how's it going? It's Francisco again. So we're on part two, and I'm gonna show you how to pretty much do the other section of the Pomodoro timer, which is a lot of functions. And just bear with me. We'll get to the point where we have a timer. Okay. So we did pass in a subtitle here. So what you want to do is you want to create another props for the subtitle, and I'm just going to change it to sub because subtitle's too long. So this is something that you guys should have done. So this is just so you can double check and make sure that you got it. And if you're passing a non-dynamic data into your view component, you just type it in like this. If you were typing in some dynamic data, you would do the vbind method, and it's shorthand with this colon. But anyways, let's just get to it, and we'll go ahead and pass in learn to code here. And I don't have my environment running, so I don't have npm run dev, and it's serve. It's like always weird whenever you're working on different projects and then you have different commands to start up your development server. So for Vue, it is npm run serve. All right, so that should get our development server up and running. I'll just click this, and it opened it on another browser, but I don't see my sub here. So all right, so let's go ahead and do some troubleshooting here. Why don't we see our sub? So if we go back to the timer, we'll see that we have a sub. Maybe we save this and we save this. Okay. Yep, I guess I just didn't save somewhere along the line. So we have learn to code, and if we kind of change our information, we'll be able to update it real time. Cool. All right. So everything's working. So now we're gonna get to the point where we're actually going to start working on the other components, which is adding the timer, or pretty much instructing the layout of this whole application. All right, so cool. So we have the timer, and our timer, everything that is related to the timer is actually going to go in here. So what we want to do is we want to remove the thumbs up, and we're gonna change this one to start. Save it. We'll see start right here. And if we go to view sax, and we'll have the components. Cool. And we're gonna go to 4 because that's what we're using right now. So we just go to guide, introduction, documentation, and what we're gonna look in for is we're gonna look at layouts. So there's got to be a layout here, but loading tables. Nope, tables not the one. Grid. Okay, so we're gonna use VueJS grid, and there's better ways to do this, but the only reason why I am going to do it this way is because I want to show you guys how to dynamically change it using Vue's reactivity. So we'll just kind of leave it here, and we'll kind of get how to do this whole row. So the cool thing about it is that it takes these rows kind of take in they take in also component data in. So essentially these are components, and they take data in. So if we were to dynamically resize the screen, Vue would then relay information like, hey, this screen width is X and the screen height is Y, and we can pass those variables into our model. So I'll kind of show you guys what it is. So we do VS row, and VS column. So it is shown right here. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna reshape this whole thing, and I'm gonna go ahead and comment this out because we don't really need it right now. I'll save it, and if I look back, we have a blank slate. All right, so if I go to my Vue Pomodoro timer, and this is something that you can use to whenever you're actually gonna develop your own application. If you need to look somewhere else for inspiration, you just kind of break it down. So essentially what we have is we have this centered component right here, and I do believe that in mine I did make two different components, but just in case, I'll go to my GitHub and I'll pull that information because this is on GitHub and we can always look into what I actually did here. So if I go to my GitHub, this is public too. I'll drop the link to this link. I should be able to find it here in, let's see, components and timer. Okay. All right, so essentially the way I broke it down is that we have this div right here. Okay. And then VS row is the options. Okay, cool. So essentially I do have one big div, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create the big div here. And I do have a class of graphics, I think, or timer here. And I'll copy this in here. Okay, save it. And then I did make a div for placing the graphics, which I haven't done so yet. But I'll go ahead and just place it here. And I have another div here also. Oh, not just separate. And this one is called time. And this is this shortcut that I'm using is called Emmet. If you look at YouTube and look at Emmet VS Code shortcuts, you'll kind of figure out how to use it. I'm just using it because it makes life a lot easier, and I hope that you use it too. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna have two H1 header, which is gonna be for the time. So it's 25 additional comma. Screwed it up. 25 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna replace this with data eventually, but just not right now. We don't need this anymore, and I don't think it'll give me any issues if I just remove it. Okay, cool. So we can replace these dummy props here because we don't really need them at the moment. And just to make sure that we have it out of the way, I'll remove it here. Okay. And in my GitHub, I also have a section that has sessions. So I'll call this one sessions. And I'm using divs because essentially, and I changed this one to container. Just to kind of match what I was doing on GitHub. So essentially, I'm using divs, but I like to have my divs named. The first class name that I have describe what the action or what purpose this div serves. So it's not just kind of like a random div hanging out. Okay. And then in here is where I actually have, and I'm gonna comment this out because I don't need it right now. And in here is where I'm gonna house my my rows. So what I'll do here is I'll do VS row, and it'll kind of complete that for me. And this is for the session with title transparent. Okay. All right, cool. Okay, so this will be the session length. Okay, cool. All right, so I'll do V row, and then I'll do VS column here. And if we check back on our documentation, that is correct. And what I'll do here is I will name this I'll have like a P, and this P will be, if we look at our application that we're working on right now, we just have this so far because we just put in the time here. But for this, I'll just name this, what's a good, we'll call this session length, and save it here. Okay, cool. And then here I'll just have the minutes, right? So I'll do another P, and then I'll just put 25 minutes here. So, and we're just kind of getting the base, I guess outline of what we're doing. Okay. So here is where we're gonna want our start button as well. So, okay. So I do have a start button, and if I look at the data, it has its own VS row. It's actually below. It's below this. So this actually works the way it should. Have it here. Okay. Like this. So let me just double check and make sure. So it is within the timer element and it is below. Okay, cool. But this bad boy has its own. Oh man, this is like a very, very detailed component here. So we have square size. Okay, and we do have square gradient, and then we have size, which is another custom attribute for this component, and it is extra large. And if we look back, it should show this pretty chunky start button. Okay, cool. All right, so we have that set up, and we have, I don't think we have gradient on this, so we'll change gradient and we'll switch it to this color. And okay, for color. Oh, okay. My bad. I changed it to this, so it's not an RGB color. Okay, so it should. Nope. It should be this darker green color that we're using in the actual application that I wrote. Okay, so now we should have this pretty basic non-working application, and what I want to introduce now is the data on Vue. So the way Vue works is that props is used to pass in data to your component, but if you actually have data generated within your component or created within your component, you're just going to use this. So data, you're going to call it as a function, and you're going to return the data within here. Okay, so I'm not going to go into how this works, but this is just how Vue returns data to its templates. Okay, so here we're going to have two very important pieces of data. So the first one, we're going to create an object, and I know I haven't covered objects in my course yet, but just wait for it. We're gonna start talking about arrays and objects, but for now, an object is essentially a variable that has a lot of other variables tied to it, and the way you define it is something like this. Don't use object because object is a reserved word in JavaScript. So object, so let's say Francisco, and Francisco has dogs, and I have more than one dogs, so it will be an array. And this is another thing that we have to cover, and I'll put a string called Sasha and a string called Nala. Pretty cool. So this is how I would call it, and then I would, I would also do something like education. I can probably list my I can't spell certifications. I can list all my A+, project plus whatever else I am doing. So, and here I can also have just a regular variable like age, and make sure that you put commas in between all of your attributes so you can actually not have this issue, the validation issue. So age, I'll use an integer, and I'll do, I think I'm about to be 29 this year. All right, so there you have it. So this is how it's set up. This is an object, but of course this is not an application about me. This is an application for a timer. So of course our object is going to be the actual timer, and we're going to have one if it's active, if it's turned on. We're going to have one called ticker, and it is null. And I'll get back to the ticker and why we're using interval. We're going to have null as well. And these are just placeholder values, and since we're just declaring them, because if we don't declare them, if we run the application and then a function is calling for this data, it's going to be like, okay, this data does not exist. So we need to define it to use it. Okay, these values can always change. And the cool thing about Vue is, since it's reactive, as soon as we change these values with a function, we're going to see it real time in our application. Okay, so interval, and then we're going to have an embedded object here as well, called duration. And you can embed objects within objects, so you can have your data as deep as you want it. Essentially, you don't want to make it too complicated, because at the end of the day, you might run into performance issues, but it's not like you are very limited. But at the same time, you want to be smart about your design. Okay, so, and we can go into the information later. Okay, so I saved this information right here. Okay, so essentially we don't see anything because we didn't really save anything. All right, cool. So what's the next step? Okay, the next step for us is to tie in this data to our actual application. So the cool thing about it is we can reference this data the same way that we reference props. But we don't really have them passed in. This is data that we're using within our component. So I'll call in the timer. And see, the cool thing, what happens when you call in the timer is that you have this. So I'll go ahead and put timer. I'll just reference a timer. And if you see, when I reference timer, it gives me the whole object. It turns the object into a string, and it displays a string. So not very nice, not what you want to display on an application, but generally this information is information that we actually do want to get to. But essentially what we're actually looking at is the minutes, right? So we'll do call in here. So if we can look here, we have a minute, we have duration within this. So duration, the object duration, if we paste it here, I save it, and I'll see this is like a blank one, so I'll have to finish it, like I'll have to put it in there. So we'll see that we have minutes, and then now we have seconds. So I narrowed it down to the duration. So if I go back here, I'll look at duration, and this is its own little object. So I narrowed it down to duration object, and if I go here and copy minutes and paste it here, I have my 25. So there we go. Boom. Now what I want to do is I want to copy this right here, but then I'll put seconds instead of minutes. So I'll go ahead and type this in here, save it, and I have my timer. Cool. So we displayed our data. We have our minutes and seconds. And the reason why we break it up like this is because JavaScript doesn't really give you out of the box a way to handle time like we do. So we have to, we have to figure out the design and develop that design. So the way we're going to break it down is we're going to have minutes And every time we reach the threshold of 59 seconds, we're going to subtract from our minute marker. So that's how we're going to run this timer. So this is why we have our separation between minutes and seconds. This is how computers work. They don't know anything besides the information that we give them. So we have to teach them that information, or we have to provide that information for them. So we're going to tell them how we want the computer to handle time. Okay, so I think this is definitely within our current realm of time that we have set up. So I'll leave it at that, and I will explain. I'll make a video on arrays and objects before I continue further on this series. I just wanted to show you guys how to get this set up pretty much. So the next step that we'll do is we'll kind of provide the logic behind everything, and then further down the road we'll talk about implementing styles, and it's a little bit more of an advanced topic because you're going into pre-processors and everything, and going into the realm of using style sheets that are generated to as regular style sheets. And I don't want to go into that just right off the bat. I want to focus more on programming. So we'll get more of that later. So essentially, towards the end of this course, we'll have a really nice Vue Pomodoro app, and you can showcase it for your portfolio. Thank you guys for hanging out. I hope that you learned something, and if you have any questions, I know that this I haven't really covered some of the information that we have gone through this video, but if you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up on Twitter or post some comments. I will be so happy to help you guys out and provide some answers to any questions that you guys have. All right, guys, it is a very nice day outside in Texas. It's actually not too hot, and I'm gonna take my dogs out. Y'all have a good one. Okay, bye.